MAME phase.
So the second thing I'd like to look at today is another very rare dump that has turned up, and that is Andromeda SS from IREM. Now this is one of those that has actually been worrying me for a long time, because I mentioned when IREM's Green Beret turned up that those early IREM boards are extremely fragile, and usually if you find one, at least one of the ROMs will be dead. And the problem with Andromeda SS in main for a long time has been that the final ROM, the last ROM, was just missing, or there was no data for it. So if you tried to boot the game, it would just crash. Now, thankfully, Dillweed appears to have found and dumped a board and submitted that new dump to MAME, and there is now a complete dump for this very early and incredibly rare IREM game. Now, obviously, this you can see already is a space shooter. It's kind of a take on the Galaxian formula, but it's also entirely its own thing. It's got its own style of gameplay with these enemies that surround sort of a mothership. And in that sense, it kind of reminds me a bit of Sigma's New York, New York, because that will have sections where there's an enemy trying to evade your shots in between other enemies. I guess, really, if you think about it, the UFO on Space Invaders is the same kind of thing. But this visualization of a circle of enemies around a mothership enemy kind of stands out for other reasons. It looks a bit like Sigma's New York, New York, although the patterns are obviously very different in New York, New York. The enemies are swarming in from the sides and circling. Now, you'll notice there's no sound, because unfortunately these are all discrete sounds, and somebody's going to have to trace the schematics and come up with a way to do the sound emulation that way. But otherwise, the game is now nice and playable. I do wonder about that attack message appearing behind the scoring at the bottom there. I don't know if the sprite positioning is maybe off, because I believe that is a sprite, not actually part of the text file map. So I don't know. I don't know if it's quite right. I think there is a real hardware video of this one up, so maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be able to see on that if it's correct. But you can see there's a counting down the number of the enemies left in the wave at the bottom there. And you can sometimes hit the big one in the middle for higher points. But I don't think there's another game that plays quite the same as this one. So I think this could be considered, an original enough concept. The way the enemies move and expand and sort of move in straight lines rather than ever moving diagonally as well. You see that they move in steps down like that, which is a little bit different, not the usual pattern you see. And they're dropping bomb graphics rather than bullets. I think we will see other IREM games where they use sort of a bomb style graphic. I think it was Red Alert. I believe the enemies drop bombs rather than standard bullets. I don't know why the colours cycle above the scores. I'm assuming that's just for a bit of visual flair rather than having any meaning, although I could be wrong. Don't know if this is the most compelling gameplay. You will notice as soon as you've made a hole between the enemies and the mothership, they will start to respawn around it. But it's a bit different. I think it maybe lacks that hook of feeling like you're making progress because of the way they respawn. But it's good to see sort of IREM try something different rather than just straight up cloning, say, Galaxian. And this is on their own hardware, again, where they tended to use ROMs that are prone to failure. Now, it starts to get a little frantic at this point. As you can see, they're coming down in good numbers. I think that's why it's flashing attack. And there we go. Okay, so that's not the total number in the wave then, because I got some bonus points based on the number that I killed, or I don't know. So second wave, looks like we're more of the same here with this one. I don't know if the game really evolves or if it is just this over and over. You don't see many games with this colour cycling on the enemies either, so that also helps this one stand out. So, don't really know why they made that choice. It looks a little bit like a fireworks display at all times. Maybe that was what they were going for. I said I was going to sneeze in the last video, and the cat just had a little sneeze. I don't know if the cat picked that up. Anyway, here we go. Let's take out some enemies. Now, I suppose somebody could record some samples and hook up some samples rather than complete silence, although MAME just try to avoid that where possible, because if the PCB is available, it makes more sense to try and trace it out a little bit so that there's some hope of simulating it. There we go. I got the mothership for a nice big 900 points. And the flashing does become more intense as the wave goes on as well. As you can see, the colour cycling is now much faster on the ones that are cycling. And there we go. So you don't have to kill them all. If they destroy themselves at the bottom of the screen, it still counts. So pattern number 3. Again, it seems to be the same pattern. It would have maybe been nice if the enemy arrangements and patterns did change a bit, but we're talking very early now. I mean, this is what, 1980, I think? Maybe even earlier. I can't remember. I'd have to have a quick look. In fact, let's just go and quickly have a look. When was it? System information. Yeah, 1980. That's what I thought. So there you go. This is a... So, not the earliest game of its type, and maybe that is one reason it is quite rare now, because by 1980, I think we're starting to see games move on a little bit. So it's still plays. Now this wave is clearly much more difficult. The enemies are more aggressive and coming towards the bottom of the screen more quickly. It's not as clear in their movement like Space Invaders, where you can see them move column, row by row, column by column, but they are coming towards the bottom. And I'm just going to move out of the way of these ones. And there we go. So no, another round. I'm sure they'll be faster and even more aggressive this time. So yeah, I think this is all the game does, but I'm really glad to see it dumped and preserved, because I say it was one I was worried about because of the reputation these IREM boards have. I think in terms of game, I probably preferred the Green Beret game. It was dumped a couple of years ago, but if you do like your space shooters and you want one that plays different to any other, then I think you'll quite enjoy this one. And see, got you. There we go. 700. I don't know what determines the number of points you get from those. I only got 700 that time. Oops. They have been got. So, well, does it restart the whole wave? I don't know. I don't know if you lose your progress completely if you die. But we'll play until I hit a game over. Just the dip switches aren't currently identified, so for all I know, this could be set to the easiest setting if there is a difficulty dip switch. The current submitted code I did have to modify because it was defaulting to a sort of free play mode where you always had 2 credits, but I'm sure that will be corrected before the next release goes out, because this again isn't going to be in an official build until the end of January, because it was submitted after the current December release. I think people are getting their New Year's submissions in, but they are too late to make the December build. So it's got a little time to get tested anyway. I think it all works quite well. Got again. So it is definitely trickier by the time you reach pattern 4 here. Let's take a few more shots. I think, yeah, scoring big. I think I do have to try and get this center enemy, because they're 500 points. It's significantly more than I'm getting for any of the smaller minor enemies. So does the bonus counter just count down? No, you do have to shoot the ships for it to count down. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the secret to scoring well is here. I do know avoiding things seems to sometimes be better than trying to shoot them, though. There we go. So I get to pattern 5. Yeah, the position of that attack text looks weird to me, but so it could be correct. Look, I've broken the 10,000 points mark. No bonus life for me there, though. Again, there might be bonus lives, there might not be. It might be a dip switch thing. And they do start very low down now, don't they? They're right on. They're firing more quickly too. Look at how many bullets dropping on me. Bombs, as they are represented. No starfield. I don't think it's meant to be a starfield. I'll have to check out the original hardware video. It just looked quite strange with that one. But, I really don't know. If there's a missing starfield, that will. Today you number 1. Well, I'm glad I'm number 1. Get lots of letters too here. Oh, left and right only, of course. There we go. That should be my name. And my name is right up there at the top, flashing away with all these multicoloured flashing. I think that's what they were going for, this whole flashy multicoloured look, which is why they've probably done it up the top there. Maybe that was their sort of unique hook, the aesthetic of this thing. Still got a credit left. Say it's defaulted to 2 credits per coin at the moment. I can hit start again, but I'm not going to play another game. I think you've seen what this one is all about. And so I'm really glad to see this one is preserved because, say, IREM went on to do quite a lot of big things. Oh, that was lucky for a shot. I was playing a bit of, say, In the Hunt recently, which is very Metal Slug-like before that team went on to do things like Metal Slug. So, yeah, early IREM shows their history, shows where they came from, and will be supported in a working state in MAME, well, very soon. So, thank you for watching, and take care, everybody, and hopefully I'll see you on the next video.